Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about what it was like to be a spectator at the Roman Colosseum, and let me tell you, it's going to make you real grateful for modern stadium seating. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to ancient Rome, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So congratulations, you just woke up in ancient Rome. It's around 80 CE, just a few years after the massive Flavian amphitheatre, what we now call the Colosseum, was completed under Emperor Titus. The morning sun peeks through the small window of your apartment in one of those rickety, multi-storey buildings the Romans call insulae. The smell of baking bread from the nearby bakery drifts through the air, mixed with the less pleasant smells of a city without modern plumbing. Today's a special day. The Emperor has announced a full day of games at the Colosseum, and you've managed to get your hands on a ticket. Yeah, that's the good news. Admission to the games is free. The bad news? Well, where you sit depends entirely on who you are in Roman society. You roll out of bed, your muscles aching from yesterday's work. The stone floor feels cool against your bare feet as you move toward the small basin of water in the corner to splash your face. Your stomach grumbles. Time for breakfast. Nothing fancy, just some bread dipped in watered-down wine. Maybe an olive or two if you're lucky. Romans aren't big on breakfast. They save their appetite for later in the day. Outside, the city's already buzzing. People are pouring into the streets, all heading in the same direction. The Colosseum isn't hard to find. It's the biggest building in the city, standing about 15 stories tall. As you join the flow of people, you feel the excitement building in your chest. You've heard stories about the incredible spectacles, the exotic animals, the skilled gladiators, the elaborate executions. Today, you'll see it all firsthand. The worn leather of your sandals scrapes against the paved streets as you walk. The crowd grows thicker as you get closer to the amphitheatre. And then, turning a corner, there it is, massive, imposing, made of travertine limestone that gleams golden in the morning light. The Colosseum. Your heart beats a little faster at the sight of it. Approaching the massive structure, you notice the vendors already set up around the perimeter. They're selling everything from snacks to souvenirs. The air fills with their shouts as they compete for customers. Fresh chickpeas, get your chickpeas here. Sausages, hot sausages. Gladiator figures for the children, just like Spartacus. Your mouth waters at the smell of the food. Maybe you'll grab something before finding your seat, but first you need to figure out which entrance to use. The Colosseum has 80 entrances, 76 of them for regular spectators like you. Each entrance is numbered, and you need to find the one that matches the number on your ticket, a small pottery shard with a number scratched into it. People push and shove around you, everyone eager to get inside and claim good seats. The noise is incredible, thousands of conversations happening at once, creating a buzz that you can feel in your chest. Kids dart between adults' legs while soldiers stand guard, keeping an eye out for troublemakers. You finally locate your entrance and join the line. As you inch closer to the archway, you get a better look at the detailed decorations carved into the stone, scenes of battle, of gods and goddesses, of Rome's greatness. Above the entrance, you spot a number engraved in the stone. This is it. The passage into the Colosseum is dark and cool after the bright heat of the morning sun. Your footsteps echo against the stone as you follow the crowd through the vaulted corridor. The scent of sweat and stone and distant animals fills your nostrils. More people press in behind you, their excitement palpable. You're carried along with the flow until you emerge into the sunlight again, and there it is, the arena floor stretched out below, surrounded by row upon row of seats climbing higher and higher. The sight takes your breath away. It's even bigger than you imagined. The oval arena floor is covered with sand, actual sand, not dirt. In fact, that's where the word arena comes from. Harina, the Latin word for sand. It's there to soak up all the blood that will be spilled today. Yeah, not the most comforting thought, but that's Rome for you. Now comes the hard part, finding your seat. If you're a wealthy patrician, you'd be headed down to the front rows. If you're a slave or a woman, you'd be climbing all the way to the top. But let's say you're somewhere in the middle, a free Roman citizen, not rich, but not poor either. That means you're headed for the middle section, what they call the Manianum Primum. You start climbing the stairs, your legs already protesting. No escalators here, friend, just step after stone step. People jostle and push around you, everyone trying to get settled before the games begin. The stone of the steps is worn smooth from countless feet over the years. Finally, you reach your section and find an open spot on the stone bench. Good news, you have about 15 inches of space to sit. Bad news, that's not a lot of room. Your knees almost touch the back of the person in front of you, and you can feel the breath of the person behind you on your neck. Hope you're not claustrophobic. You look around, taking it all in. The Colosseum can hold about 50,000 spectators, and it seems like every seat is filling up, from nobles in their togas near the front to the common folk in simple tunics higher up, to the women and slaves at the very top. The whole of Roman society is here, arranged in neat rings according to status. Above you, sailors are working to unfurl the massive awning called the velarium. It's a remarkable piece of engineering, a huge fabric canopy that can be extended to protect spectators from the sun. The sailors, using their knowledge of ropes and knots, manipulate the massive sheets of fabric until they stretch across portions of the seating area, creating welcome patches of shade. Not everyone gets covered though. The rich folks down front get the most shade, while you and your fellow middle section sitters get partial coverage at best. The heat is already building, and so is the noise. People are shouting to friends, placing bets on the upcoming fights, arguing about which gladiator is the best. Vendors weave through the crowd, still selling their wares, now mostly drinks and snacks. You flag one down and exchange a small coin for a cup of watered wine. It's warm and not particularly good, but it'll help with the thirst. First time? Asks the older man sitting next to you. His skin is weathered from years in the sun, his tunic simple but clean. You nod, taking another sip of your wine. You picked a good day, he says, gesturing toward the arena below. I heard they've got some new beasts from Africa, lions bigger than any you've ever seen. Your stomach tightens a bit at the thought. You've heard stories of the animal hunts, the venaciones, where trained hunters take on exotic animals from the furthest reaches of the empire. It's supposed to be a display of Rome's power, its reach extending to the wildest corners of the known world. And the gladiators, you ask? The man grins, revealing several missing teeth. The best. They're saying Flamma might fight today. Your eyebrows raise. Even you've heard of Flamma, a Syrian gladiator who's won more fights than anyone in recent memory. He's been offered his freedom multiple times but has chosen to continue fighting. The crowd loves him. A trumpet blast cuts through the noise of the crowd, and a hush falls over the Colosseum. All eyes turn to the imperial box where cushioned seats await the emperor and his entourage. Your heart beats faster. You've never seen the emperor in person before. The crowd erupts as a group of richly dressed figures enters the imperial box. At their center is Emperor Titus himself, dressed in purple-edged robes that mark him as Rome's ruler. He raises his hand, and the crowd roars even louder, the sound bouncing off the stone walls and creating a deafening wall of noise. The emperor takes his seat, and another trumpet sounds. The games are about to begin. From beneath the arena floor, a platform rises, carrying the first performers of the day. It's a clever system of pulleys and counterweights that allows people, scenery, and animals to appear as if by magic. The Romans love their special effects. Today, the first event isn't gladiators, but something lighter. Acrobats and jugglers to warm up the crowd. You watch as men flip through the air, form human pyramids, and juggle flaming torches. It's impressive, but you can feel the crowd's restlessness. They didn't come for this. They came for blood. After the acrobats, another trumpet signals the start of the animal hunts. Trapdoors in the arena floor open and exotic animals emerge. Deer and ostriches at first, then wild boars and bulls. Trained hunters, the bestiari, enter the arena armed with spears and bows. The crowd cheers as the hunt begins. You find yourself leaning forward, caught up in the spectacle despite yourself. It's both horrifying and fascinating to watch these wild creatures, many of which you've never seen before, racing around the arena, desperate to escape, but finding no exit. The hunters work with practiced precision, bringing down animal after animal. The sand of the arena floor, once golden, is now stained red in places. Slaves rush out between exhibitions to rake it over, hiding the blood before the next show. You take another sip of your wine, which suddenly tastes more bitter than before. As the morning wears on, the heat intensifies, sweat trickles down your back, and you wish you'd brought a fan like some of the wealthier spectators. The man next to you offers you a piece of bread, which you accept gratefully. It's dense and chewy, but it helps with the hunger that's starting to gnaw at your stomach. Wait until midday, he says, tearing off another piece of bread for himself. That's when they do the executions. You swallow hard. You've heard about this part of the games, the damnatio ad bestias, where condemned criminals are thrown to the beasts. It's considered justice in Rome, a public display of what happens to those who defy the empire's laws. But the thought of watching people being torn apart by animals makes your stomach turn. Can't we skip that part, you ask, trying to sound casual. The man looks at you with surprise. Skip it. That's when they bring out the really dangerous beasts, the lions and tigers. It's the best part of the morning. You force a smile and nod, not wanting to seem weak. When in Rome, right? As the last of the hunted animals falls, there's a pause in the action. Slaves enter the arena again, this time to set up elaborate scenery, trees and rocks, and even a small hill. They're creating a landscape for the next exhibition. What's this for? You ask your neighbour. They're recreating the forests of Germania, he explains. They're going to show the recent victory over the barbarian tribes there. Sure enough, once the scenery is in place, two groups of men enter the arena. One group is dressed as Roman legionaries, with their distinctive rectangular shields and short swords. The other group wears furs and carries axes and long spears, meant to represent the Germanic tribes. It's a reenactment of a recent battle, though you suspect the outcome has been predetermined to favour Rome. The battle commences, and it's clearly choreographed, more like a dance than actual combat. Still, it's impressive to watch, with formations shifting and weapons clashing. The crowd cheers for the Romans and boos the barbarians. When the Roman forces finally surround and defeat their enemies, the crowd erupts in patriotic fervour. Your neighbour elbows you excitedly. See, this is why Rome rules the world. You nod in agreement. It would be unwise to suggest otherwise in this crowd, but privately you wonder about the real battle. Was it this clean, this heroic, or was it messy and terrifying like real combat tends to be? The Romans love their myths, their stories of glory and honour. The truth is often more complicated. As the reenactors leave the arena to applause, you notice the quality of light changing. The sun has reached its zenith and the shadows are shortening. It must be close to midday. Your stomach tightens again. Sure enough, another trumpet blast signals the change in program. The mood in the Colosseum shifts, becoming more tense, more anticipatory. People who had been chatting fall silent. All eyes turn to the arena floor, where the scenery is being cleared away. A procession enters from the main gate, men in chains, guarded by soldiers. These are the condemned, those who have been sentenced to death in the arena. Some are criminals, murderers, arsonists, thieves. Others are prisoners of war. And yes, some might be Christians, though contrary to popular belief, there's little evidence that Christians were regularly executed in the Colosseum specifically for their faith. The condemned look terrified, as well they should. What awaits them is not a quick or merciful death. The crowd, which had been mostly good-natured until now, turns ugly. They shout insults and curses at the prisoners. These men represent threats to Roman order, Roman peace. Their punishment is meant to be a warning to others. You feel sick watching them. These men who know they're about to die painfully for the entertainment of the crowd. But you don't look away. No one does. The first group of prisoners is led to posts set up in the arena and tied there. Then, from beneath the floor, more trapdoors open. This time, lions emerge, lean and hungry. They've been starved to make them more aggressive. What happens next is brutal and swift. The crowd roars its approval, but you find yourself closing your eyes, unable to watch. The sounds are bad enough, the screams, the snarls, the wet, tearing noises. When you finally force yourself to look again, slaves are once more raking the sand, covering the evidence of what just happened. Not much of a stomach for it, eh? Your neighbour asks, not unkindly. Don't worry, the gladiators are coming up next. That's more like proper fighting. There's skill to it, honour, not just butchery. You nod, grateful for the reassurance. The executions continue through midday, each more elaborate than the last. Some prisoners are forced to act out mythological deaths before being killed for real. Others are made to fight each other with weapons they don't know how to use. It's cruel, calculated, and the crowd eats it up. By the time the last of the condemned has been dispatched, the sun has moved past its highest point. There's a longer break now, as the arena is prepared for the main event. People stand and stretch, visit the latrines built into the outer ring of the Colosseum, buy more food and drink. The conversation grows loud again as everyone discusses what they've seen and what's to come. You use the opportunity to visit the latrine yourself, following the signs to the appropriate section for your class. The Roman latrine is a public affair, a long stone bench with holes cut into it, positioned over a constantly flowing water channel. There's no privacy, but at least it's relatively clean compared to the cesspits you're used to at home. As you return to your seat, the excitement in the air is palpable. The gladiatorial games are about to begin. The real reason most people came today. You settle back onto your hard stone seat, shifting to find a more comfortable position after hours of sitting. Your back aches and your legs are stiff, but you forget all that as another trumpet blast announces the start of the main event. A procession enters the arena, the gladiators in all their glory. They march in formation, their armour gleaming in the afternoon sun. Each type of gladiator is distinct. The heavily armoured Spectator with his smooth helmet and short sword, the Retiarius with his net and trident, the Thraex with his curved blade, the Mamillo with his fish-crested helmet. They are magnificent, their bodies honed through years of training. They approach the imperial box and raise their weapons in salute. Their voices ring out across the arena. Ave Imperator morituri te salutant. Hail, Emperor. Those who are about to die salute you. The The crowd goes wild and you find yourself cheering along with them. Despite everything you've seen today, there's something undeniably thrilling about this moment. These aren't condemned men being led to slaughter. These are trained warriors, athletes who have chosen this life. Many are slaves, yes, but some are free men who voluntarily signed contracts to become gladiators, drawn by the fame and fortune that success in the arena can bring. The gladiators take their positions paired off according to fighting styles that will make for the most interesting matches. The first pair steps forward while the others withdraw to the edges of the arena. A referee takes his position nearby, holding a long staff. He'll enforce the rules. Yes, there are rules, even here. Gladiatorial combat isn't the chaotic free-for-all that modern movies sometimes depict. It's closer to a highly dangerous sport with techniques, strategies, and codes of conduct. The referee gives the signal and the first match begins. The crowd falls relatively quiet, everyone intent on watching the skill and courage on display. These early matches are not usually to the death. They're meant to showcase technique and bravery. The gladiators circle each other, looking for openings, testing defenses. When they engage, it's in quick, violent bursts of action, metal scraping against metal, feet shuffling in the sand. Your neighbour points out small details you might have missed. How one gladiator feints to draw out his opponent, how another uses his shield not just for defence but as a weapon itself. You begin to see the art in what at first looked like simple brutality. The match ends when one gladiator manages to disarm the other and force him to the ground. The defeated man raises his index finger, pleading for mercy. The victor looks to the crowd, who roar their approval. This has been a good fight, and they want both men to live to fight another day. The emperor, following the will of the people, gives the signal for mercy. The defeated gladiator will live. More matches follow, each more elaborate than the last. As the afternoon wears on, the stakes get higher. The most famous gladiators are saved for the later bouts, and these fights sometimes do end in death, though not as often as you might think. A good gladiator is expensive to train and maintain. Killing them off regularly would be bad business. You find yourself completely absorbed in the spectacle now, calling out encouragement to your favourites, gasping when a particularly daring move succeeds or fails. The earlier horrors of the day fade as you lose yourself in the skill and drama of these contests. And then a murmur runs through the crowd. The final match of the day is about to begin, and one of the competitors is indeed Flammer, the famous Syrian. He enters the arena to thunderous applause, acknowledging the crowd with a raised trident. He fights as a retiarius, one of the most difficult but crowd-pleasing styles. His opponent is a Spectator, heavily armoured with a shield and sword. It's the classic matchup, the quick, lightly armoured retiarius trying to entangle his slower but better protected opponent. The crowd immediately divides, some cheering for Flammer, others for his opponent. Your neighbour is on his feet, shouting Flammer's name. You stand too, caught up in the excitement. The match begins, and it's immediately clear that you're watching two masters at work. Their movements are precise, economical, every step and gesture having a purpose. Flammer darts, it's in and out of range, trying to find an opening for his net, while the Spectator advances steadily, looking to close the distance where his sword would have the advantage. The crowd holds its breath as Flammer's net flies through the air and misses. Now he's at a disadvantage, armed only with his trident against the Spectator's sword and shield. He retreats, trying to recover his net while keeping his opponent at bay, but the Spectator is good. Very good. He presses his advantage, driving Flammer back toward the edge of the arena. For a moment, it looks like the Syrian champion might lose. The crowd gasps as the Spectator's sword slips past Flammer's guard, drawing a line of red across his arms. But Flammer doesn't panic. With a move so quick you almost miss it, he drops to the ground and rolls, coming up behind the Secutor. Before his opponent can turn, Flammer's trident is at his back. The crowd explodes. The Secutor drops his weapons, acknowledging defeat. Once again, the Emperor looks to the crowd for their judgment. The response is unanimous. Both men have fought with such skill and courage that they deserve to live. The Emperor gives the sign for mercy, and the gladiators salute each other before leaving the arena together, battered but alive. And with that, the day's games come to an end. The sun is lowering in the sky now, casting long shadows across the arena. People begin to gather their things, discussing the day's events as they prepare to leave. The exits will be crowded, everyone trying to leave at once. So many choose to linger, letting the crush subside before making their way out. You sit for a moment longer, taking it all in. The day has been a whirlwind of emotions: excitement, horror, awe, disgust, admiration. You've seen the best and worst of Rome today, its brilliance and its brutality side by side. The Colosseum itself embodies this contradiction. A magnificent feat of engineering and artistry used for spectacles of death and suffering. As you finally stand to leave, legs stiff from hours of sitting on stone, you look once more at the arena below. Slaves are already at work, preparing it for tomorrow's games. The cycle will begin again. The hunts, the executions, the gladiators. This is Rome at its most Roman, a society that created both stunning beauty and stunning cruelty, often in the same breath. You follow the crowd toward the exit, the cool air of the vaulted passage a relief after hours in the sun. Outside, the streets are filled with people discussing the day's highlights, placing bets on tomorrow's matches, buying last-minute souvenirs. Life in Rome continues its bustling pace. As you walk home, the dying light turning the city to gold, you find yourself already anticipating the next games. Despite everything, you know you'll be back. There's something addictive about the Colosseum, about being part of that roaring crowd, about witnessing spectacle on such a grand scale. For better or worse, the games are the heart of Roman life, the place where the entire society comes together, where Rome shows itself to itself. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you've eaten little all day. Time to find some dinner, maybe one of the thermopolia, the fast food stands that dot the city, serving hot stew and wine to hungry Romans, then home to bed to rest your tired body and process all you've seen. Tomorrow will be another day in Rome, perhaps less dramatic than this one, but never boring. That's one thing you can say for life in the Empire. It's never, ever dull. The next morning arrives with the persistent crowing of roosters and the early calls of street vendors. Your muscles ache from yesterday's long hours on those hard stone seats, but there's an energy coursing through you too. Yesterday was just your first taste of the games. Today, you're determined to get an even better view, to understand more of what you're seeing. As you splash cold water on your face from the basin, you think about what your neighbour at the games told you before you parted ways. If you really want to see the Colosseum, get there early, walk around the whole thing before the crowds, and bring a cushion for your backside for Jupiter's sake. Good advice. You tear a chunk from yesterday's leftover bread, grab a small cloth bag with some food for later, and tuck a folded cushion under your arm. It's just a simple thing stuffed with wool scraps, but it'll make those stone seats feel a whole lot friendlier to your rear end. The streets are quieter this early in the morning. Shopkeepers are just setting up, slaves are emptying chamber pots, careful where you step, and the rich are still sleeping off last night's wine. It gives you a chance to really look at the Colosseum as you approach it, to appreciate the sheer scale of the place. It truly is massive. Rising nearly 15 stories high, it dominates this part of Rome. The outer wall has 3 tiers of arches, each decorated with columns in different styles. Doric on the bottom level, then Ionic, then Corinthian at the top. It's a masterpiece of engineering and design, a statement in stone of Rome's power and wealth. And to think it was built in just 8 to 10 years, mostly by Jewish slaves captured after the siege of Jerusalem. That's Rome for you, brilliant and brutal all at once. You notice something you missed yesterday in the crush of the crowd. Numbered markings above each archway. These correspond to the numbered tickets, helping people find their designated entrance. It's a clever system for managing the flow of 50,000 people. The Romans might be bloodthirsty, but you've got to hand it to them. They know how to organise a spectacle. As you circle the building, you see workers preparing for today's games. Carts laden with sand arrive to freshen up the arena floor. Slaves carry in props and scenery pieces. Animal handlers lead caged beasts toward the underground holding areas. It's like seeing backstage at a massive theatre production, which in a way it is. Your curiosity gets the better of you, and you follow one group of workers toward a service entrance. No one stops you. You're just another face in the busy morning preparations. You slip through an archway and find yourself in a corridor that slopes downward, leading beneath the arena. The temperature drops noticeably as you descend. The walls are rough stone here, not the polished marble of the public areas. The smell hits you next, a pungent mix of animal musk, human sweat, and something metallic that might be blood. Your nose wrinkles, but you press on, drawn by the sounds echoing up from below. Men shouting orders, animals growling, the clank of metal being moved. You emerge into a dimly lit space that stretches out in a complex network of corridors and rooms. This is the Hypogeum, the underground area beneath the Colosseum's floor. It's a hive of activity as workers prepare for today's shows. You press yourself against a wall, trying to stay out of the way while taking it all in. The Hypogeum is essentially a 2-level backstage area filled with cages for animals, rooms for gladiators to prepare, storage for props and scenery, and an elaborate system of lifts and pulleys. These mechanical devices can raise platforms through trapdoors in the arena floor, creating the special effects that so delight the crowd. Animals appearing as if from nowhere, scenery changing between events. You watch as a group of men test one of these lifts, loading it with weights to simulate the animals it will carry later. The wooden platform creaks as it rises slowly, pulled upward by ropes and counterweights. It's ingenious engineering, all designed to create surprise and wonder for the audience above. In one corner, you spot a group of men who must be gladiators, already preparing for today's matches. They're checking their equipment, helmets, shields, various weapons, while a trainer barks instructions. They don't look like the desperate slaves you might have expected. Some are laughing together, others are focused and serious. They're professionals, athletes in a deadly sport. A man in fine clothing, probably a lanista, a gladiator trainer and manager, moves among them, checking their readiness. The lanista owns these men, or at least owns their contracts, and he has a vested interest in their performance. A victorious gladiator brings glory and profit. A dead one is a lost investment. You're so absorbed in watching that you don't notice the overseer approaching until his shadow falls across you. You! What are you doing down here? This area is off limits to spectators. Your heart jumps into your throat as you turn to face a burly man with a scarred face and suspicious eyes. He's clearly someone used to giving orders and having them obeyed. I got lost, you stammer, which isn't entirely a lie. I was looking for the latrines. The man snorts, clearly not believing you, but also not overly concerned. Latrines are up top, through the main corridors. You shouldn't be down here. It's dangerous. One One of the beasts could get loose, or you could get crushed by the lifting machinery. He gestures toward the exit. Go on, get back where you belong. The games will be starting soon enough and you can see everything from your seat. You nod quickly and turn to leave, grateful he didn't call for guards. As you climb back toward the public areas, your mind buzzes with what you've seen. The Colosseum isn't just an arena. It's a massive machine designed to create spectacle through hidden technology and careful choreography. The shows may be bloody and real, but they're also meticulously staged like violent theatre productions. By the time you emerge into the sunlight again, the crowd has begun to arrive. You join the flow of people heading toward the entrances, your ticket in hand. Today, you've decided to splurge a little and rented a cushion from one of the vendors outside. In addition to the small one you brought, your backside will thank you later. Finding your entrance is easier now that you understand the numbering system. As you pass through the cool, shadowed corridor, you hear the echoing voices of thousands of spectators already finding their seats. The acoustics in this building are remarkable. Even a whisper can carry surprisingly far in some spots. Today, you've managed to secure a slightly better seat, a bit lower down in the section reserved for ordinary citizens. You'll be able to see more clearly, though you'll also be more exposed to the sun as it rises higher in the sky. Trade-offs everywhere in life, right? You settle onto your cushions, much better than yesterday's bare stone, and look around. The arena below is being raked smooth, fresh sand spread evenly across its surface. Stagehands make final adjustments to various props and scenery pieces. In the Imperial box, attendants arrange cushions and prepare refreshments, though the Emperor hasn't arrived yet. The crowd around you is in a festive mood. People chat excitedly about yesterday's games and speculate about what today will bring. A young boy nearby is playing with a clay figurine of a gladiator, making it battle against an imaginary opponent. His father points out features of the arena to him, explaining how everything works. It's the Roman equivalent of a father taking his son to his first baseball game, a cultural tradition passed down. A vendor makes his way along your row, selling cups of watered wine. You buy one using a small copper coin. The wine is slightly sour, but it's wet and somewhat refreshing in the growing heat. Another vendor follows with a tray of snacks, nuts, dried fruits, small honey cakes. You buy a handful of almonds to munch on while waiting for the games to begin. First time here? Asks the woman sitting next to you today, a matronly figure in a simple but clean stola, the traditional dress of a Roman matron. Second day, you reply. I was here yesterday too. She nods approvingly. Good games yesterday. My husband and I never miss them when the Emperor hosts. I'm Livia, by the way. Nice to meet you, you say, giving your own name in return. You picked a good spot today, Livia says, gesturing to the seating area. Not too high up. Good view of the action, and we should get some shade from the velarium once they extend it. She points upward to where sailors are already preparing the massive awning system. Is it true that they sometimes flood the arena for naval battles? You ask, remembering something you've heard. Livia nods eagerly. The Naumachii, yes, though they don't do those often. Too complicated. They have to waterproof the whole arena floor and bring in enough water to float the ships. I saw one as a girl. Spectacular. They recreated the Battle of Salamis between the Greeks and Persians. Had dozens of small ships right here in the arena with hundreds of men fighting on them. Many drowned. She says this last part casually, as if discussing the weather. You're about to ask more when a fanfare of trumpets announces the arrival of the Emperor. The crowd rises to its feet, cheering as Emperor Titus enters the Imperial box with his entourage. He's dressed even more splendidly than yesterday, his purple-edged toga gleaming with gold embroidery. He acknowledges the crowd with a raised hand, and the roar that greets him is deafening. Once the emperor is seated, the day's events can begin. Another trumpet blast signals the start of the pompa, the opening parade. Through the Porta Triumphalis, the main gate, comes a procession of all who will perform today. Animal handlers leading exotic beasts on chains, hunters with their weapons, performers, musicians, and finally the gladiators themselves, their armour polished to a high shine. They circle the arena once, then stop before the imperial box for the traditional salute. Their voices ring out clear and strong. Ave Imperator morituri te salutant. The crowd cheers, and the emperor acknowledges them with a nod before giving the signal for the games to begin. Today's first event is something different, a demonstration of trained animals. A group of handlers enter with various beasts that have been taught to perform tricks. Monkeys dressed as soldiers that ride on goats, elephants that can balance on their hind legs, bears that dance to music. It's lighter entertainment meant to start the day on a less bloody note. Children in the crowd especially love this part, pointing and laughing at the animals' antics. You find yourself smiling too. There's something surreal about watching an elephant pick up a wreath with its trunk and place it on its trainer's head while thousands of people cheer. For a moment, the Colosseum feels less like a place of death and more like a place of wonder. But the mood shifts as the animal acts conclude and the hunters enter for the venaciones, the animal hunts. These are more serious, more violent. Today's hunters are bestiari, men specially trained to fight exotic animals. They're armed with spears, bows, and sometimes nets and whips. The first animals released are relatively harmless. Ostriches, gazelles, deer. The hunters demonstrate their skill by bringing them down cleanly with arrows or spears. It's impressive marksmanship, but not particularly dangerous work. Then come the more threatening beasts, wild boars with their vicious tusks, bulls with sharp horns, leopards and panthers that slink around the arena's edges, looking for an opening to attack. The hunters work in teams now, covering each other as they face these more dangerous opponents. The crowd reacts differently to each kill. A clean, skilled takedown of a charging boar earns appreciative applause. A hunter who shows fear or misses his target is met with jeers and catcalls. And when a panther manages to leap onto a hunter, clawing at his leather armour before he can drive his dagger into its heart, the crowd gasps, then roars its approval at his narrow escape. They brought those panthers all the way from Africa, Livia tells you during a brief lull. Can you imagine capturing them, putting them on ships, bringing them across the sea? Just for this moment, the Empire is truly magnificent. You nod, understanding her pride. The logistics required to bring exotic animals from the far corners of the Empire to Rome for a few minutes of entertainment is staggering. It's a display of Rome's reach, its wealth, its power over both nature and distant lands. The morning continues with more hunts, each featuring more dangerous animals. Bears from the forests of Germania, hyenas from Egypt, and finally the crowd favourite, lions. These massive cats with their thick manes and powerful jaws are the ultimate test for the bestiarii. They're brought up from below on the lifts, emerging through trapdoors in the arena floor to the thunderous approval of the spectators. The lion hunt is the most dramatic yet. These aren't half-starved beasts, but healthy, powerful animals in their prime. One hunter is caught by a swipe from a massive paw that tears through his leather greaves, leaving bloody gashes on his leg. He limps away while his companions distract the lion, eventually bringing it down with multiple spear thrusts. By midday, the sand of the arena is stained red in many places. Despite the slaves who rush out between events to rake it over, the heat has intensified, and you're grateful for the partial shade provided by the valerium above. You sip from a fresh cup of wine and eat some of the bread and cheese you brought, watching as the arena is prepared for the midday executions. These are the damnatio ad bestias, condemnations to the beasts. As yesterday, prisoners are led out in chains. Some are stoic, some weeping, some seem almost mad with fear. They're tied to stakes around the arena or simply released to run, though there's nowhere to escape to. Today's innovation is a recreated scene from mythology, the story of Actaeon, the hunter who saw the goddess Diana bathing and was turned into a stag, then torn apart by his own hunting dogs. A prisoner is dressed as a hunter, with crude antlers fixed to his head. Then, a pack of starved hunting dogs is released into the arena. What follows is grim and brutal. You look away for much of it, though the sounds alone are horrifying enough. The crowd's reaction is mixed. Some cheer and laugh, treating it as entertainment. Others watch in solemn silence, seeing it as justice being served. A few, like you, seem uncomfortable but don't leave. This is Rome, and this is how Rome deals with those who break its laws or threaten its order. When the executions finally end, there's a longer break to prepare for the afternoon's main event. The gladiatorial contests. People stand and stretch, visit the latrines, buy more food and drink. The conversation around you picks up again, deliberately turning away from what was just witness to anticipation of what's to come. "Have you placed any bets?" Livia asks, breaking the silence between you. You shake your head. "I wouldn't know who to bet on." She smiles knowingly. "My husband always bets on the Retiari. He says they have the advantage with their reach, but I prefer the Secutores, more protected, better chance of survival." She leans closer, lowering her voice. "I'll tell you a secret. See that man over there?" She discreetly points to a well-dressed man seated in the equestrian section. "That's Quintus Pompeius. He owns several of the gladiators fighting today, including Africanus, the Ethiopian. They say he's paid the referees to ensure favourable matchups for his men." You raise your eyebrows, intrigued by this glimpse into the politics and corruption behind the games. Of course there would be money changing hands, favouritism, fixed fights. The games might be presented as exhibitions of courage and skill, but they're also a business, with powerful men investing in gladiatorial troops and expecting returns on their investment. Is that common, you ask? Livia shrugs. Common enough. The Lanistae who train and manage the gladiators all have their patrons among the wealthy, and everyone wants to back a winner. She pats your arm. Don't look so shocked. It's just how things work. The fights are still real, the danger still genuine. It's just that some men have advantages. Before you can ask more, trumpets sound again, signalling the start of the afternoon's main event. The crowd settles back into their seats, the buzz of conversation dying down as all eyes turn to the arena below. The gladiators enter in pairs, already matched for their bouts. They're an impressive sight in their specialised armour, each type distinct and instantly recognisable to the knowledgeable crowd. First are the heavily armoured hoplomachii with their large round shields and spears, modelled after Greek soldiers. They're paired against Thraces, who carry smaller curved shields, and seekers, forward curved short swords. Both types wear helmets that severely restrict their vision, adding to the challenge. Next come the Dimochairi, who fight with 2 swords and minimal armour, relying on speed and agility rather than protection. They're matched against the Provocatores, who have breastplates and rectangular shields. The crowd favourites follow, the Retiarii with their nets, tridents, and minimal armour, paired against the Secutores with their oval shields, short swords, and distinctive smooth helmets designed to prevent the net from catching on them. Finally, there are the Equites, mounted gladiators, who begin their fight on horseback with spears before dismounting to continue with swords. Each pair salutes the emperor, then takes their positions around the arena. At a signal from the editor, the official in charge of the games, today the emperor himself, the first matches begin simultaneously. The Colosseum erupts with noise as the crowd cheers for their favourites. You find yourself drawn to the match between a Retiarius and Secutor happening nearest to your section. The contrast between the lightly armoured net fighter, nimble and quick, and the heavily protected swordsman, powerful but slower, makes for a fascinating contest of styles. The Retiarius darts in and out of range, occasionally flicking his net toward the Secutor, but never fully committing to the throw. He's feeling out his opponent's reactions, looking for patterns, weaknesses. The Secutor advances steadily, his shield raised, trying to close the distance where his sword would be most effective. See how the Retiarius keeps circling to the Secutor's left, Livia points out. That's because the Secutor's vision is more limited on that side due to his helmet. Clever. You nod, impressed by her knowledge. She clearly watches the games with a technical eye, understanding the strategies at play. Suddenly, the Retiarius makes his move. His net flies through the air, but the Secutor raises his shield just in time. The net drapes over it, and for a moment the two men are linked by the cords. The Retiarius pulls, trying to unbalance his opponent, while the Secutor plants his feet and resists. With a powerful jerk, the Secutor yanks the net toward him, pulling the Retiarius off balance. The net fighter stumbles forward and the Secutor strikes with his sword, but the Retiarius twists at the last moment, taking only a glancing blow across his unprotected shoulder. Blood flows, but it's not a serious wound. The crowd roars its approval. First blood has been drawn, but the match is far from over. The Retiarius has lost his net, but he still has his trident, which he uses to keep the Secutor at bay while he retreats to recover his position. Around the arena, other matches play out with similar drama. A Thraex has his helmet knocked off by a powerful blow from a Hoplomachus's spear. An Equus is pulled from his horse by his opponent, crashing to the sand. Each moment of skill or courage is met with cheers, each mistake with groans or jeers. Your attention returns to the Retiarius and Secutor as their match intensifies. The net fighter, having recovered from his earlier stumble, now presses forward aggressively, his trident jabbing at the Secutor's legs, trying to find a gap in the armour. The Secutor blocks most attacks with his shield, but he's being forced backward toward the arena wall. He's tiring, Livia comments, noting how the Secutor's shield drops slightly lower after each block. All that armour gets heavy after a while. Sure enough, the next thrust from the trident slips past the shield, puncturing the Secutor's thigh. He grunts in pain but doesn't fall, instead swinging his sword in a desperate counterattack. The blade catches the Retiarius across the chest, not deep but enough to draw another line of blood. Both men are wounded now, both tiring. The crowd is on its feet, shouting encouragement to their favoured fighter. The match has gone on longer than most, a testament to the skill of both gladiators. Finally, the Secutor makes a crucial mistake. Lunging forward, he overextends, his weight carrying him past his opponent. The Retiarius spins around and drives the butt end of his trident into the back of the Secutor's knee. The joint buckles and the armoured man crashes to the sand. Before he can rise, the Retiarius is on him, pressing the points of his trident against the fallen man's throat. The Secutor, knowing he's beaten, raises his index finger in the signal for missio, mercy. The Retiarius looks to the Emperor, who in turn looks to the crowd. The spectators wave their handkerchiefs and shout, "Mite! Let him go." This has been an excellent fight, and both men have shown skill and courage. The Emperor extends his hand, thumb horizontal, the signal for mercy. The Retiarius withdraws his trident and helps his opponent to his feet. They salute each other, then the Emperor, before limping from the arena to the applause of the crowd. Both will live to fight another day. That's how it usually ends, Livia tells you. Contrary to what many think, most gladiatorial combats didn't end in death. A good gladiator might fight dozens of matches over his career. They're too valuable to kill off regularly. You nod, somewhat relieved. It's still a brutal sport, but there's more nuance to it than you initially thought. There's skill, strategy, even a kind of honour in how the men fight and how the crowd judges their performance. The matches continue throughout the afternoon, each with its own drama and excitement. Some end quickly, others drag on. Some gladiators show extraordinary skill, others seem outmatched but fight bravely anyway. The crowd responds to each moment, creating a collective experience that sweeps you along with it. By late afternoon, as the sun begins its descent, the final match of the day is announced. This is the Primus, the main event, featuring the most famous and skilled gladiators. Today, it's a contest between Africanus, the Ethiopian fighter owned by Quintus Pompeius, who Livia pointed out earlier, and Gallus, a Gallic fighter who has won his last 8 matches. Both men are fighting as myrmiones with similar equipment, large rectangular shields, short swords, helmets with fish crest decorations, arm guards and leg greaves. It will be a contest of pure skill and strength, with neither having an equipment advantage. The crowd falls relatively quiet as the two champions take their positions. Even from your seat, you can sense the tension between them, the focused intensity. These aren't desperate slaves fighting against their will. These are professionals at the peak of their abilities, and there's pride at stake here as well as survival. At the signal, they begin circling each other, shields raised, swords at the ready. Neither rushes in. They're cautious, respectful of each other's abilities. The crowd grows restless. Someone shouts for them to fight, but the gladiators ignore the pressure, each waiting for the right moment. Gallus strikes first, a testing blow against Africanus's shield. The Ethiopian responds with a similar move. They're gauging each other's strength, reactions, style. More blows follow, most blocked by shields or armour, a few drawing slight wounds. The sand beneath their feet is kicked up as they manoeuvre, creating a small dust cloud around them. The fight intensifies as both men begin to take more risks, looking for the opening that will decide the match. Swords clash against shields, metal scrapes against metal, sweat pours down their bodies, making the leather straps of their armour slick and the handles of their swords harder to grip. Africanus lands a solid blow that dents Gallus's helmet, momentarily stunning the Gaul. The crowd gasps, sensing a turning point, but Gallus recovers quickly, ducking under Africanus's next swing and driving his shoulder into the Ethiopian's shield, knocking him back several steps. As Africanus stumbles, Gallus presses his advantage, raining blows that the Ethiopian can only partially block. One cuts across his arm, another glances off his helmet. Africanus is forced to one knee, his shield barely holding off Gallus's assault. The crowd is on its feet now, the noise deafening. Pompeius, the Ethiopian's owner, looks worried, already calculating his financial loss if his champion falls. But Africanus isn't finished yet. As Gallus draws back for a powerful swing, Africanus surges upward from his kneeling position, driving the boss of his shield into the Gaul's midsection. The air leaves Gallus's lungs in a rush, and he staggers backward. Africanus follows through, his sword finding a gap in the Gaul's armour at the shoulder joint. Blood spurts, and Gallus drops his shield, his arm suddenly useless. He switches his sword to his left hand, a difficult transition that few gladiators master, and continues fighting, but he's clearly at a severe disadvantage now. The end comes quickly after that. Africanus presses forward relentlessly, and though Gallus fights valiantly with his offhand, he's eventually disarmed and driven to the ground. Africanus stands over him, sword raised for the final blow, but Gallus raises his finger for mercy. Before the blade can fall, all eyes turn to the Emperor. Titus looks to the crowd, gauging their reaction. The spectators are divided. Some call for mercy. Gallus fought well despite his injury. Others, including many who likely bet on Africanus, call for death to complete their champion's victory. The Emperor considers, then extends his hand with thumb pointed downward, the signal for death. The crowd roars, some in approval, others in disappointment. Gallus accepts his fate with dignity. He straightens his neck, looking up at his opponent without fear. Africanus nods once in respect, then delivers the fatal thrust cleanly and quickly. Gallus's body goes limp, his blood soaking into the sand. The Ethiopian steps back, salutes the Emperor, then leaves the arena to thunderous applause from his supporters. You feel a hollowness in your stomach. Despite everything you've seen today, this final death still affects you, perhaps because it seems unnecessary. Gallus had fought well, had shown courage, but that's Rome. Entertainment and death, beauty and brutality, all mixed together in a complex spectacle that defies simple judgment. As attendants enter to remove Gallus's body, Livia sighs beside you. A shame. I had a small bet on the Gaul. She shrugs philosophically. That's the risk with gambling, and with life in the arena. The day's games are concluded with a final ceremony. The victorious gladiators return to the arena to receive their prizes, palm branches symbolizing victory, and for some, purses of gold coins. Africanus, as the champion of the Primus, receives the largest reward, presented by the Emperor himself. The crowd begins to disperse, filing out through the numerous exits. You sit for a moment longer, taking in the scene one last time. The blood-stained sand, the tired but triumphant gladiators, the Emperor in his finery, the magnificent architecture of the Colosseum itself. It's been another day of extremes, of skill and savagery, of engineering marvels and brutal entertainment, of humanity at its most cultured and its most primal. The Colosseum embodies all these contradictions, just as Rome itself does. As you finally stand to leave, legs stiff from another day on the stone seats, despite your cushions, you find yourself wondering about the lives behind the spectacle, the gladiators who train for years knowing they might die for entertainment, the animals captured from distant lands only to be slaughtered in the arena, the condemned prisoners whose deaths are transformed into mythological reenactments. You follow the crowd toward the exits, joining the river of humanity flowing out of the amphitheatre. The late afternoon sun slants through the arches, casting long shadows across the stone corridors. The conversations around you are animated, people already discussing their favourite moments from today's games, debating which gladiator showed the most skill, which animal was the most fearsome. Outside, the streets are filled with the post-games crowd, a festive atmosphere prevailing. Vendors do a brisk business selling food, drink and souvenirs to people still buzzing with excitement from the day's events. Children play at being gladiators, using sticks for swords and bits of broken pottery for shields. You pause to buy a small clay lamp shaped like a gladiator from one of the vendors, a memento of your days at the games. As the man wraps it in a scrap of cloth for you, you ask him if he attends the games often. "Every chance I get," he says with a grin, revealing several missing teeth. "Been watching the games since I was a boy. Nothing like it in the world, is there? The glory of Rome, right there in the arena." He hands you the wrapped lamp. "Come back tomorrow. They say they're bringing in a rhinoceros from Africa. Never been seen in Rome before." You thank him and continue on your way, the wrapped lamp tucked safely in your bag. Tomorrow? Maybe. The The games are addictive, there's no denying that. Despite the blood, despite the death, there's something compelling about the spectacle, about being part of that roaring crowd, about witnessing the extremes of human experience. This is Rome, magnificent and monstrous, civilized and savage, and the Colosseum is its beating heart, pumping the lifeblood of spectacle through the veins of the empire. For better or worse, it's a testament to what humans can build and what they can become, both the heights and the depths. As you make your way home through the gathering dusk, the sounds of the crowd still echoing in your ears, you know you'll carry these days with you forever, your own small part in the eternal story of Rome and its Colosseum. Sleep comes easily that night, your body exhausted from 2 days of sitting on stone seats, your mind still processing everything you've witnessed. Your dreams are filled with gladiators and lions, with cheering crowds and the glint of sunlight on polished armour. You wake with a sense of purpose. 2 days at the games have piqued your curiosity about what happens behind the scenes. The glimpse you caught of the hypogem yesterday has left you wanting to know more about how the spectacles are created, how the gladiators live, how this massive entertainment machine operates. Instead of heading directly to the Colosseum this morning, you set out for another destination, the Ludus Magnus, the largest gladiatorial training school in Rome. It's located just east of the Colosseum, connected to the amphitheatre by an underground passage so that gladiators can move directly from their training ground to the arena without being seen by the public. The morning air is cool against your face as you walk through streets already busy with the day's commerce. Bakers sell fresh bread, farmers bring produce from the countryside, craftsmen open their workshops. Rome never truly sleeps. It merely shifts from one kind of activity to another as the hours pass. The Ludus Magnus comes into view as you round a corner, a large rectangular building with a central courtyard surrounded by cells and training areas. It's not as impressive as the Colosseum itself, but it's substantial, a testament to the resources Rome devotes to its bloody entertainment. You're not sure if you'll be allowed inside. These places aren't typically open to the public, but you're hoping to at least get a glimpse of the training in progress. As you approach, you see that one side of the building has a raised viewing platform where a small crowd has gathered. Perfect. Joining the onlookers, you find yourself with a clear view into the central courtyard, which has been designed as a miniature version of the Colosseum's arena. Sand covers the ground and wooden training equipment is arranged around the edges. In the centre, pairs of men are engaged in various forms of combat practice. These must be the gladiators preparing for future games. They're not in full armour, but wear practice gear, lighter versions of their fighting equipment. Some work with wooden swords against straw dummies, others spar with each other under the watchful eyes of trainers who shout instructions and occasionally step in to demonstrate a technique. First time watching the training? Asks a man standing next to you, noticing your fascinated expression. You nod, not taking your eyes off the scene below. I come here most mornings, he says. More interesting than the actual games sometimes. Here you see the real work, the skill being honed. Those men down there have been training for years. Are they all slaves, you ask? Genuinely curious about the men whose lives are spent preparing for the arena. Most, but not all, the man replies. See that one there with the red headband? That's Valerius. He's a free man who signed a contract, an octoratus, swore an oath to be burned, bound, beaten, and killed by the sword if he doesn't follow the Lannister's orders. Crazy if you ask me, but the money's good if you survive, and the women, he makes a crude gesture. Gladiators are celebrities. Some women go wild for them. You look more closely at Valerius. He moves with confidence, his muscles well defined from years of training. Currently, he's practicing with a wooden sword and shield, his movements precise and economical. Nothing flashy, just effective technique repeated until it becomes instinct. What about that big one? You ask, pointing to a particularly massive man working with a trainer in another part of the courtyard. Ah, that's Niger, captured in some battle in Africa. He's a Dimachorus, fights with 2 swords. Terrifying to face, they say, but not as skilled as he could be, relies too much on strength and aggression. Your informative neighbour seems to know each gladiator by name and reputation. As you watch, you begin to appreciate the complex system that produces these fighters. It's not just about throwing men into an arena with weapons. It's a sophisticated training program that combines physical conditioning, technical skill, psychological preparation, and tactical thinking. The men below aren't just learning to swing swords, they're learning to read opponents, to manage fear, to fight strategically despite the chaos of combat. The trainers are clearly experienced. Many are former gladiators themselves who survived their fighting days and now pass on their knowledge. They're harsh but not needlessly cruel. There's a professionalism to the whole operation that surprises you. What do they eat? You ask, curious about how these fighting men are maintained. The gladiator diet? Mostly barley, beans and vegetables. They call them barley men for a reason. Builds a layer of fat to protect against cuts without slowing them down too much. They get meat sometimes, but not as much as you'd think. And they eat just one good meal a day in the evening after training. And they live here. You gesture to the cells visible around the perimeter of the courtyard. Those who are slaves, yes. The free men can come and go, though they still train daily. The cells aren't as bad as they look. Basic but clean, better than what most poor Romans have. They get regular medical care too. A wounded gladiator is a useless gladiator. You continue watching, fascinated by this glimpse into the lives of the men you've seen fighting in the arena. They're both more and less than the mythic figures they appear to be during the games. More human, more skilled, less like the savage beast the crowd sometimes treats them as. After a while, a shout from one of the trainers signals a change in the training routine. The gladiators pair up for practice fights using wooden weapons. The matches are intense but controlled, with trainers stepping in whenever a technique needs correction or tempers flare too high. They save the real fighting for the arena, your neighbour explains. Can't afford to have them seriously injuring each other during practice. A good gladiator represents a huge investment. Years of training, feeding, housing, medical care. The Lannister wants a return on that investment, which means keeping his men alive and winning in the arena. This economic reality behind the games adds another layer to your understanding. The blood sports aren't just about Rome's appetite for violent entertainment. They're a business with investors, managers, and assets. The gladiators are valuable commodities. Their lives worth protecting right up until the moment they step into the Colosseum, where their death might be more profitable than their survival. The complexity of it all is fascinating, the contradictions quintessentially Roman, a highly organised professional system dedicated to producing spectacular violence, men treated simultaneously as valuable assets and disposable entertainment, training that is both brutally demanding and carefully protective of its subjects. As the morning progresses, more spectators gather on the viewing platform. Some appear to be wealthy Romans checking on fighters they've bet on or invested in. Others are clearly fans, pointing excitedly when they recognise a favourite gladiator. A few women in fine clothing giggle behind veils as they watch the muscled men train, confirming what your neighbour said about gladiators' appeal. Look, they're bringing out the new recruits. Your neighbour points to a group of men being led into the courtyard. Unlike the trained gladiators, these men look uncertain, some defiant, others scared. They're a mixed group. Some appear to be prisoners of war with foreign features, others likely criminals condemned to the arena rather than execution, a few perhaps desperate men who have sold themselves into this life. A trainer barks orders, and the recruits are paired with more experienced gladiators who begin showing them basic stances and movements. It's the first step in a long process that will either turn these men into arena fighters or see them die in training. Most won't make it, your neighbour comments, seeing your interest in the new recruits. Training is almost as dangerous as the arena for beginners. Break a leg, get an infection, can't keep up with the regimen, plenty of ways to die before you ever face your first real opponent. You watch a bit longer until your legs grow tired from standing. The training will continue all day, you're told, with different groups rotating through various exercises. It's relentless, a machine that produces gladiators the way other Roman institutions produce soldiers, administrators, or roads. Thanking your informative neighbour, you depart the Ludus Magnus with a new perspective on the games. The spectacles at the Colosseum are just the visible tip of a massive system that extends throughout the empire, capturing animals in distant provinces, training fighters in schools like this one, managing the logistics of bringing it all together for the entertainment of Rome. Instead of heading directly to the Colosseum for today's games, you decide to explore another aspect of Rome's entertainment culture. Near the training school is a small thermopolium, a fast food stand, popular with gladiator enthusiasts. Perhaps you can learn more there while getting something to eat. The thermopolium is busy, its counters embedded with large clay pots containing various hot foods. The smell is enticing: spiced meat, cooked vegetables, fresh bread. You order a simple meal of stewed lentils and pork, along with a cup of wine, then find a spot at one of the small tables. Near you, a group of men are engaged in animated discussion about yesterday's games, particularly the final match between Africanus and Gallus. They're analysing the techniques used, debating whether the emperor's decision to deny mercy was justified, speculating on how much money changed hands in bets. 50,000 sesterces at least, says one man, a shopkeeper by the look of his clothes. My brother-in-law works for one of the betting syndicates, said it was the biggest purse this year. Pompeius must be pleased, another comments. That's his third champion in 2 years. The man has an eye for talent, or deep enough pockets to ensure his men get favourable matchups, adds a third, lowering his voice slightly. The shopkeeper snorts. Of course he does. You think any of this is left to chance? The whole thing's managed carefully. Who fights whom, when mercy is granted, which beasts face which bestiari. It's theatre, just with real blood. You listen, fascinated by this cynical but probably accurate assessment. The games are both more real and less real than they appear. Genuine danger and death packaged into a carefully managed spectacle. The conversation shifts to today's scheduled events. Apparently, the main attraction will be a special venatio featuring animals never before seen in Rome, including the rhinoceros the vendor mentioned yesterday. The men speculate about how such a beast might be fought, what tactics would work against its armour-like hide. Your meal finished, you decide it's time to head to the Colosseum. The crowds will be building already, and you want to secure a decent seat for what promises to be an extraordinary day of games. The streets around the amphitheatre are even more crowded than previous days. Word of the exotic animals having drawn an especially large audience. You join the throng moving toward the entrances, ticket in hand, anticipation building in your chest despite, or perhaps because of, what you now know about the system behind the spectacle. Finding your entrance, you make your way inside and up to the seating area. Today you've decided to try a different section, higher up, but directly facing the Imperial box. The view of the arena floor isn't quite as good, but you'll have a better angle on the Emperor's reactions, which often prove as interesting as the events themselves. You settle onto your cushion. You've learned that lesson well, and look around. The Colosseum is filling quickly, the excited buzz of conversation rising from all sides. Vendors move through the crowd selling refreshments and souvenirs. Betting agents discreetly take wagers. Friends call to each other across the seating sections, arranging where to meet after the games. It's a cross-section of Roman society, the wealthy in their togas near the front, the middle classes in their tunics in the middle sections, women and the poor in the highest tiers. Yet despite these divisions, there's a sense of shared anticipation, of collective experience. For all its stratification, Rome comes together in the Colosseum, united by a common entertainment culture. The ceremonies begin as usual, the procession, the salute to the emperor, the preliminary events. Today there's an extended sequence of acrobats and jugglers, more elaborate than previous days. They perform incredible feats, human pyramids 3 levels high, flaming torches, toss between performers with perfect precision, tightrope walkers crossing directly over the arena floor. It's a reminder that the Colosseum hosts more than just blood sports. It's a venue for all manner of spectacles, a place where Rome displays its talents and treasures to itself. The crowd appreciates the skilled performances, applauding particularly difficult tricks, gasping when a tightrope walker pretends to slip before recovering with a flourish. After the acrobats come dancers performing a mythological story, the tale of Theseus and the Minotaur. Their costumes are elaborate, their movements graceful. Musicians accompany them, playing flutes, lyres and small drums. The acoustics of the Colosseum carry the music surprisingly well, though in the highest seats it's probably hard to hear. You find yourself drawn into the performance despite knowing that bloodier events will follow. There's something mesmerising about watching skilled dancers tell a story through movement, the familiar myth taking on new life in this physical retelling. When the dance concludes, there's a brief intermission as the arena is prepared for the main event of the morning, the special venatio featuring exotic animals. Slaves rake the sand smooth, while others position various props and scenery pieces to create a landscape resembling an African savanna, complete with small trees and artificial rocks. A trumpet blast announces the start of the hunt. The crowd falls relatively quiet, anticipation building. Then, from beneath the arena floor, the first animals appear, rising on the wooden lifts. Gazelles and zebras, creatures strange to Roman eyes but not particularly dangerous. They bolt across the arena, confused and frightened by the noise and unfamiliar surroundings. The hunters enter next, initially armed only with bows. They pursue the herbivores, demonstrating their marksmanship by bringing down the animals with clean shots. It's impressive skill, though less dramatic than what will follow. Next come more threatening beasts, hyenas with their unsettling, laughing calls, leopards that slink low to the ground, constantly looking for escape or attack opportunities. The hunters switch to spears and work in pairs, covering each other as they face these more dangerous opponents. But the crowd is waiting for the main attractions, and a roar goes up when the first truly exotic creature appears, a giraffe, its long neck making it seem impossibly tall. It's not an aggressive animal, but its strangeness makes it fascinating to the Romans, many of whom have never seen or even heard of such a creature before. The giraffe is not killed, but rather displayed, led around the arena perimeter by handlers using long poles with loops of rope to guide it. The crowd marvels at its peculiar proportions, its spotted coat, its gentle movements. This is Rome flexing its imperial reach. Look what wonders we can bring from the farthest corners of the world. After the giraffe come more dangerous predators, lions and tigers, bears from the northern forests, a striped hyena. The hunters display different techniques for each, showcasing their knowledge of animal behaviour as well as their combat skills. It's a lethal ballet, man against beast, with the outcome never truly in doubt, but the process still fraught with danger. Finally, the moment everyone has been waiting for arrives. A special platform rises from below, larger than the others, bearing a creature that draws gasps even from those who thought themselves prepared. The rhinoceros, grey-skinned and massive, with its distinctive horn protruding from its snout. It's a southern white rhinoceros, you later learn, captured in the wilds of Africa and transported at enormous expense to Rome. The journey alone killed several other specimens. This survivor, now confused and angry in the arena, represents an almost unimaginable investment of resources, all for a few minutes of entertainment. The crowd is momentarily hushed by the sheer presence of the beast, so different from anything in their experience. Then a wave of excitement passes through the Colosseum as specially selected hunters enter, armed with heavy spears and protected by additional armour. The rhinoceros, agitated by the noise and movement, paws at the sand with its foot, then charges one of the hunters. Despite its bulk, it moves with surprising speed. The hunter barely dives aside in time, the beast's horn missing him by inches. The crowd gasps, then cheers at this display of both animal power and human agility. For several tense minutes, the hunters work to contain and control the rhinoceros, trying to exhaust it by making it charge repeatedly. It's not clear if they intend to kill it or merely subdue it. Perhaps the creature is too valuable to sacrifice for a single day's entertainment. Eventually, they succeed in driving it back onto the platform that brought it up, which is then lowered back beneath the arena floor. The rhinoceros will live to appear another day, though its ultimate fate will likely be death in the arena once the novelty of its appearance wears off. The morning's venaciones conclude with a mass hunt of less exotic but still impressive animals: boars, bulls, and a pack of wolves. Teams of hunters dispatch them efficiently, though not without risk. One man is gored by a bull and carried from the arena, his fate uncertain. As midday approaches, the usual change in programming occurs. The arena is cleared and prepared for the executions, the damnatio ad bestias that marks the middle of the day's events. Today, however, there's a twist announced by heralds. The condemned will face not just beasts but also each other in what's described as a naval battle on land. The concept becomes clear as slaves bring out large, shallow pools of water and position them around the arena. The condemned are led in, divided into two groups, and given mock weapons, real enough to kill but crude and unfamiliar to most of them. They're to reenact a naval battle while periodically being attacked by animals released into the arena. It's chaotic, bloody and disturbing, even by the standards of the games. The condemned have no training, no protection, and little hope. They slash desperately at each other or try to hide behind the minimal scenery, only to be driven back into the fray by arena attendants with whips and burning brands. Periodically, a trapdoor opens and another predator is released. A lion, a bear, a pack of wolves. The animals, confused by the water and the number of potential victims, sometimes attack the condemned, sometimes fight each other, sometimes try to escape. The result is mayhem, deaths coming in quick succession from weapon, claw, and tooth. You find yourself looking away more often than watching, the arbitrary cruelty of this display lacking even the skill and purpose that makes gladiatorial combat compelling. Many in the crowd seem to share your discomfort, the usual bloodlust muted in the face of such obvious slaughter. Relief comes when the last of the condemned falls and the arena is cleared once more. There's a longer break now before the afternoon gladiatorial contests. People stand, stretch, visit the facilities, purchase food and drink. The conversation around you deliberately turns to lighter topics, as if collectively agreeing to move past what was just witnessed. You use the opportunity to explore a bit more of the Colosseum's public areas. The outer ring of the amphitheatre contains various shops and services, food vendors, souvenir sellers, even small shrines where the superstitious can make offerings for their favoured gladiators. It's like a small city wrapped around the main event, catering to every need and whim of the spectators. One shop catches your eye, a seller of gladiatorial memorabilia. The shelves are lined with clay lamps moulded in the shapes of famous fighters, small bronze figurines, even vials said to contain sweat from champion gladiators. A dubious claim, but one that apparently sells well to women who believe it has aphrodisiac properties. The shopkeeper, seeing your interest, launches into his sales pitch. Looking for a souvenir of the games, friend? I've got authentic memorabilia from all the top fighters. Here, a lamp moulded from a cast of Flammer's own face, or perhaps a figurine of Africanus after his victory yesterday. Made them overnight, fresh as can be. You smile at his enthusiasm, but notice that all his authentic figurines look suspiciously similar, with only minor variations in painting to distinguish between different gladiators. Still, they're charming in their way, and you end up purchasing a small bronze statuette of a Retiarius, the net fighter whose match particularly impressed you on your first day. Tucking your purchase into your bag, you rejoin the crowd heading back to the seating areas. The afternoon session will feature the gladiatorial contests, the main attraction for most spectators. Today's matches are rumoured to include some unusual pairings and special exhibitions, along with the standard combat types. As you settle back onto your seat, you notice a change in the quality of light inside the Colosseum. The sun has moved, and now the velarium, the massive awning system, casts dappled shadows across the arena. The temperature has dropped slightly, making the afternoon session more comfortable than the morning's events. The gladiators enter to the usual fanfare, but today's procession includes some unusual sights. Among the standard fighter types are what appear to be female gladiators, rare but not unheard of in Rome. There are also dwarfs equipped as gladiators, an exhibition match that promises to be more comedic than deadly. The crowd's reaction is mixed. Some cheer at these novelties, others seem disappointed by what they perceive as a less serious programme. The female gladiators, in particular, draw both admiration and derision, their presence challenging traditional Roman gender roles, even as it reinforces the game's entertainment value. The afternoon unfolds with a series of matches, some conventional contests between standard gladiator types, others these special exhibition matches. The female gladiators fight with skill and determination that soon wins over most of the crowd. The dwarf gladiators match is played partly for laughs, but still demonstrates genuine fighting ability within the constraints of their size. Between bouts, other entertainments keep the crowd engaged. Trained animals performing tricks, musicians playing martial tunes, dancers interpreting the victories just witnessed. It's a continuous spectacle, never allowing attention to wander or energy to flag. As the sun begins its descent toward the western horizon, the final matches of the day are announced. These are the prime contests, featuring the most skilled and famous gladiators in the most anticipated pairings. The crowd quiets as the combatants take their positions, the casual conversation giving way to focused attention. The first of these featured matches pits a Secutor against a Retiarius, the classic matchup of heavily armoured swordsman versus the quick, lightly armoured net fighter. Both men are champions with multiple victories to their names, and their contest demonstrates why. Every movement is precise, every strategy carefully executed. The Retiarius feints and dodges, looking for the perfect moment to cast his net. The Secutor advances steadily, shield raised, waiting for his opponent to make a mistake. It's a match of patience as much as skill, each man respecting the other's abilities enough to avoid rash actions. When the decisive moment comes, it's almost too quick to follow. The Retiarius flicks his net toward the Secutor's feet rather than his upper body, an unusual tactic that momentarily confuses his opponent. As the Secutor adjusts his shield, the Retiarius strikes with his trident, not at the body, but at the Secutor's helmet, knocking it askew and blinding him for a crucial second. That second is all the net fighter needs. His next cast envelops the Secutor's sword arm, and a quick pull unbalances the armoured man, sending him crashing to the sand. Before he can recover, the Retiarius is upon him, trident poised at his throat. The defeated Secutor raises his finger, requesting mercy. The crowd, appreciative of the skill shown by both men, signals their approval for clemency. The Emperor grants it with a horizontal thumb, and both gladiators leave the arena to applause, their honour and lives intact. More matches follow, each with its own drama and excitement. Not all end peacefully. 2 fighters are carried out with serious wounds, and one contest results in a death when mercy is denied. The crowd reacts to each outcome according to their assessment of the fight's quality and the combatants' courage, cheering skilled victories and honourable defeats alike. As the final match concludes, the day's games draw to a close with a ceremony honouring the victors. Palm branches symbolising victory are presented, along with purses of prize money. The crowd begins to disperse, flowing out through the vomitoria, the exit passages designed to empty the massive amphitheatre quickly and efficiently. You remain seated for a few minutes, watching the arena being cleared and prepared for tomorrow's events. Slaves rake the blood-soaked sand, repair damaged scenery, collect discarded weapons. The machinery of the games never truly stops, it merely resets for the next cycle of violence and spectacle. As you finally rise from your seat, your legs stiff from another day on stone, you decide to take a different route out of the Colosseum. Instead of following the main flow of people, heading down through the vomitoria, you climb upward, curious to see the view from the highest tiers. The climb is steep, and your calves burn with each step. How do the women and poor citizens manage this every day of the games? By the time you reach the uppermost level, you're breathing hard, sweat dampening your tunic despite the cooler air of evening. But the view is worth every painful step. From here, you can see the entire arena laid out below, its oval shape perfect and precise. Beyond the Colosseum, Rome spreads in all directions, a sea of tiled roofs and stone buildings turning golden in the setting sun. Temples and palaces rise from the urban landscape, their marble facades gleaming. Smoke drifts upward from countless hearth fires and workshops. In the distance, the Tiber winds its way through the city like a silver ribbon. This is Rome, the capital of the world, home to 1 million souls, the heart of an empire that stretches from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria, and you're standing in its most iconic building, a monument to both human achievement and human cruelty. Beautiful, isn't it? You turn to find an older man standing nearby, also taking in the view. His tunic is simple but clean, marking him as a working Roman of modest means. The calluses on his hands suggest a craftsman of some kind. I've been coming to the games for 40 years, he continues, not waiting for your response. Started when the old wooden amphitheatres were still in use. Saw one collapse once. Terrible business, hundreds killed. This place, though, he gestures around at the massive stone structure. This will stand forever. Our great-great-grandchildren will watch games here. He's not wrong. The Colosseum's construction is a marvel of engineering, travertine stone and concrete combined in a structure that manages to be both enormously strong and surprisingly light for its size. The outer wall uses a series of arches to distribute weight efficiently, while the interior is a complex network of corridors and passages that allow thousands of people to move through the building without chaos. Are you a stonemason, you ask, noting the particular way he appreciates the building. He nods, pleased to be recognised. Worked on the eastern section during construction. Just a young apprentice then, but I cut some of the stones for the upper arcades. He pats the wall beside him with obvious pride. Put my mark on a few of them. Not that anyone would notice, but I know they're there. It must have been an enormous project, you say, genuinely curious about the building's creation. Like nothing before or since, he agrees. Thousands of workers, skilled craftsmen, labourers, slaves. We worked from dawn to dusk, year after year. The architects were geniuses, had the whole thing planned out on scrolls, every stone numbered and placed exactly where it needed to go. He shakes his head in remembered amazement. And the machinery. Massive cranes lifting stones heavier than 10 men, pulleys and counterweights that could raise blocks to the highest levels with just a few men operating them. As he speaks, you try to imagine the construction site, the noise, the dust, the constant activity as Rome's greatest amphitheatre took shape. The old mason describes how they built wooden scaffolding that seemed to touch the sky, how they mixed concrete in huge vats using a special recipe that would harden even underwater, how they carved the decorative elements on the ground before hoisting them into position. Emperor Vespasian started it, you know, he says. Said Rome needed a permanent amphitheatre worthy of its greatness, built it right where that madman Nero had his private lake, part of his golden house. Symbolic that was, taking back for the people what Nero had hoarded for himself. This fits with what you've heard about Vespasian, a practical emperor who worked to restore Rome's stability after Nero's excesses and the chaotic year of 4 emperors that followed. The Colosseum was as much a political statement as an entertainment venue, a gift to the people that also reminded them of who had provided it. I should be getting home, the old mason says, noticing the deepening shadows. The wife worries if I'm out after dark these days, getting too old to defend myself against street thugs, she says. He grins, showing several missing teeth. She's probably right. You thank him for sharing his knowledge and watch as he makes his way carefully down the stairs, one hand braced against the wall for support. His pride in having contributed to this massive edifice is touching, a reminder that the Colosseum represents not just imperial power, but also the skill and labour of countless ordinary Romans. The crowd has thinned considerably by now. Only stragglers remain, some still discussing the day's highlights, others simply taking their time to avoid the crush. You begin your own descent, moving more slowly than your climb, taking time to observe details you missed in the excitement of the games. The stone steps are worn in the centre from countless feet over the decades. Graffiti is scratched into some surfaces, names, crude drawings, declarations of love or support for favourite gladiators. In one spot, someone has carved an elaborate game board for what looks like a Roman version of checkers, presumably to pass time during less exciting moments of the games. As you reach the middle tier, you pause to observe a small group engaged in what appears to be a heated debate about today's matches. Two men are arguing about whether the retiarius in the final bout used an illegal technique to unbalance his opponent. It was clearly against the rules, insists one, a heavy-set man with an elaborate beard. You can't target the helmet straps directly. Everyone knows that. Nonsense, counters his companion, a taller, thinner man gesticulating energetically. The rules only prohibit deliberately removing the helmet. His trident struck the faceplate fairly, and if the impact loosened the straps, that's just bad luck for the secutor. Others in the group take sides, the debate growing louder and more animated. You smile to yourself. This passion for the technical details of gladiatorial combat is another aspect of Roman culture. It's not just about the blood and spectacle. It's also about appreciating the skill, understanding the rules, debating the finer points of technique. For many Romans, discussing the games afterward is as important as watching them. Continuing downward, you reach the main level and find yourself in one of the wide vaulted corridors that ring the Colosseum. These passageways are engineering marvels in themselves, the arched ceilings distributing the weight of the massive structure above while creating spacious areas for the movement of crowds. Even now, hours after the games have ended, these corridors remain active. Vendors are packing up their unsold merchandise. Slaves are cleaning the public areas. Guards patrol to prevent theft or vandalism. The Colosseum, you realise, is never truly empty. Like the city itself, it merely shifts from one phase of activity to another as day turns to night. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you've eaten little since morning. The excitement of the games often makes people forget hunger, but now that the day is ending, your body is demanding attention. Fortunately, Rome never lacks for food options, even at this hour. Exiting the Colosseum into the gathering dusk, you see that many of the food vendors are still doing business, serving the last of the departing crowd. The smell of grilled meat draws you to one stall where a cook is preparing skewers of lamb over a small charcoal brazier. You hand over a few coins and receive a skewer hot off the fire, the meat seasoned with herbs and drizzled with olive oil. Finding a low wall to sit on, you eat while watching the nighttime transformation of the area around the Colosseum. Torches and oil lamps are being lit, casting flickering golden light across the stone facades. The crowd has changed character. Fewer families now, more groups of young men, some already drunk and boisterous. Prostitutes begin to appear, looking for business among the lingering spectators. Watch yourself if you're staying in this area after dark, warns a city watchman passing by, noticing your obvious fascination with the scene. Pickpockets and cut purses love nights after the games. Too many people with wine in their bellies and not enough sense in their heads. You thank him for the advice, finishing the last of your lamb skewer. The watchman's warning is a reminder that for all its grandeur, Rome has its dangers, especially after dark. The narrow streets can become treacherous, particularly for someone unfamiliar with the city's geography. Rather than risk getting lost in unfamiliar districts after nightfall, you decide to find lodging nearby. There are several inns in the vicinity of the Colosseum, catering to visitors who come to Rome specifically for the games. They're not the city's finest accommodations, but they're convenient and relatively affordable. You settle on a place called the Gladiator's Rest, a 3-story building with a tavern on the ground floor and rooms for rent above. The innkeeper, a portly man with the weathered face of a former sailor, shows you to a small but clean room on the 2nd floor. The furnishings are basic: a straw mattress on a wooden frame, a small table with an oil lamp, a ceramic basin and pitcher for washing. The window shutters open onto a view of the Colosseum, now dramatically lit by torches placed in brackets along its exterior walls. After washing away the day's dust and sweat, you head down to the tavern for a drink before bed. The room is crowded and noisy, filled with fellow spectators reliving the day's events over cups of wine. You find a space at one of the long communal tables and order a cup of the house wine, which arrives watered down, as is the Roman custom. The conversations around you are all focused on the games, favourite moments, controversial decisions, predictions for tomorrow's matches. At the next table, a group is animatedly discussing the rhinoceros and speculating about what other exotic beasts might appear in future Venationes. "I heard they're trying to bring an elephant from Nubia," says one man, leaning in conspirationally. "Not just any elephant, a white one, sacred to the Nubians. The governor there is sending it as a gift to the emperor." "Nonsense," scoffs his companion. "There's no such thing as a white elephant. You're thinking of Parthian tigers, which the emperor already has in his private menagerie." The debate continues, growing more elaborate with each cup of wine consumed. You listen with amusement, recognizing that much of what's being said is probably exaggeration or outright fabrication. The games breed tall tales and rumors, each spectator wanting to demonstrate special knowledge or insight. At another table, an older man who claims to be a retired gladiator is holding court, showing off scars and telling increasingly improbable stories of his arena exploits. His audience seems skeptical but entertained, buying him drinks to keep the stories flowing. Whether he's genuinely a former fighter or simply a convincing impersonator is impossible to determine, but he certainly knows the technical details and terminology of gladiatorial combat. As the evening progresses, the tavern grows rowdier. A group of young men, clearly deep in their cups, begin singing a bawdy song about a gladiator and his female admirers. The lyrics are explicitly sexual, drawing laughter from some patrons and disapproving looks from others. Rome's attitudes towards sexuality are generally more open than modern sensibilities, but there are still boundaries of public decorum. The innkeeper, seeing that things are getting out of hand, signals to a burly assistant who approaches the singers and quietly but firmly suggests they either lower their voices or take their revelry elsewhere. The young men grumble but comply, switching to a less offensive drinking song. This small incident reminds you that despite its reputation for excess and indulgence, Roman society does maintain certain standards of public behaviour. The games themselves may be violent and brutal, but they're conducted according to established rules and traditions. Even entertainment has its structures and limitations in Rome. Finishing your wine, you decide to retire for the night. Tomorrow will be another full day at the Colosseum, and you want to be rested and alert to take it all in. As you climb the stairs to your room, your mind is still processing everything you've experienced: the spectacle of the arena, the engineering marvel of the building itself, the complex social interactions of the crowd, the entire culture that has developed around this form of entertainment. Sleep comes quickly, despite the unfamiliar bed and the continued noise from the tavern below. Your dreams are a jumble of images from the past days: gladiators locked in combat, exotic animals prowling the arena sand, the sea of faces in the crowd, all merging and shifting in the illogical way of dreams. You wake to the sounds of Rome, already bustling with morning activity, street vendors calling their wares, cartwheels rumbling over stone, the distant calls of animals being led to market. Sunlight streams through the slats of your window shutters, creating patterns on the rough plaster wall. After a simple breakfast of bread, cheese and watered wine in the tavern, which is much quieter and less crowded than the previous evening, you set out for your fourth day at the games. This time, however, you have a different agenda. You've seen the spectacles from various vantage points, but there's still much about the Colosseum you want to understand, particularly its ingenious infrastructure that makes such massive events possible. With this in mind, you arrive early, before the main crowd, and approach one of the guards at a service entrance. Slipping him a small bribe, you ask if you might see some of the areas not normally accessible to the public. The guard hesitates, then nods, pocketing the coins. "Stay close and don't touch anything," he warns, leading you through a door usually used by arena workers. If anyone asks, you're helping to deliver supplies for today's games. The corridor you enter is narrower and less finished than the public passageways, clearly designed for functionality rather than appearance. The walls are unadorned concrete rather than marble-faced, the floors packed earth rather than stone. The ceiling is lower, creating a more confined feeling. This leads down to the service areas, your guide explains, his voice echoing slightly in the enclosed space, where all the real work happens. The passage slopes downward, taking you beneath the level of the arena floor. The temperature drops noticeably, and the air takes on a damp, earthy smell mixed with less pleasant odours: animal musk, sweat, blood, and waste. Oil lamps set in wall niches provide limited illumination, their flames creating moving shadows that make the passage seem to shift and change as you walk. You emerge into a large open area divided by wooden partitions and stone walls into numerous chambers and corridors. The hypodium, the complex underground system beneath the Colosseum's floor that you glimpsed briefly on your second day. Now, in the relative calm before the day's events, you can appreciate its full complexity. Workers move purposefully through the space, preparing for today's shows. Some attending to animals kept in cages along one wall, feeding them, cleaning their enclosures, checking their condition. Others are arranging props and scenery pieces that will be lifted to the arena when needed. Handlers inspect the system of wooden elevators and pulleys that create the special effects so beloved by the crowd. Your guide points out key features of this underground world. 80 vertical shafts connect to the arena floor above, he explains, each with its own lifting mechanism. The larger ones can raise platforms carrying animals, scenery, or groups of fighters. The smaller ones are for individual trapdoor effects, a single gladiator appearing suddenly, or a fountain, or a tree that seems to grow from nothing. The engineering is impressive, especially considering the limited technology of the time. Everything is powered by human muscle, teams of slaves or paid workers operating winches and counterweight systems that can rapidly raise heavy loads to the arena floor. How do they know when to raise which platform, you ask, noticing that there's no direct view of the arena from below. Signals, the guard says. Bells, shouted commands, sometimes coloured flags pass through small openings, and a lot of rehearsal. The shows are carefully planned. Everyone knows exactly when each effect needs to happen. This confirms what you've come to understand about the games. They're not spontaneous events, but carefully choreographed spectacles designed to create maximum impact on the audience while appearing natural and seamless. Even the seemingly chaotic animal hunts follow prepared scenarios, with handlers knowing exactly which beasts will be released when and where. Moving deeper into the hypodium, you pass areas where gladiators are preparing for today's contests. Some are warming up with practice weapons, others are having armour fitted or adjusted by attendants. Still others sit quietly, perhaps meditating or praying before facing potential death in the arena above. Their expressions range from focused determination to resigned calm to barely controlled fear. Some of the men joke with each other, perhaps using humour to mask anxiety. Others remain solitary, lost in their own thoughts. All show the physical effects of years of specialised training, muscled bodies bearing the scars of previous contests. Most of them will survive today, your guide comments, noticing your interest in the gladiators. Despite what people think, death in the arena isn't as common as it seems. These men are valuable investments. Their Lannister don't want to lose them unnecessarily. You nod, having come to the same conclusion from your observations. Still, the risk is real. Every man preparing to enter the arena today knows he might not leave it alive. That knowledge must affect them profoundly, creating a unique psychology that separates them from ordinary Romans. Beyond the gladiators' preparation area is a section devoted to the animals used in the venationes. The smell is stronger here, a pungent mix of fur, feces and fear. Cages line both sides of a wide corridor containing various beasts waiting their turn in the arena. Most are relatively calm, either naturally docile or subdued by their journey and captivity. A few pace restlessly or growl at anyone who comes too close. We keep the most dangerous ones sedated until just before they're needed, explains your guide. Otherwise, they'd tear apart anyone who tried to handle them. Even so, we lose keepers every now and then. Just last month, a lion managed to get its paw through the bars and took a man's arm clean off. He says this matter-of-factly, another reminder of how commonplace danger and death are in this environment. The workers who make the games possible face their own risks, though these go largely unnoticed by the spectators who benefit from their labour. Adjacent to the animal holding area is what appears to be a small infirmary. Inside, a physician and several assistants are preparing bandages, surgical tools and medicinal herbs. This must be where injured gladiators receive treatment immediately after their bouts. Best doctors in Rome, your guide says, following your gaze. They have to be. Treating gladiator wounds requires special skills, knowing how to stop bleeding quickly, how to clean wounds to prevent infection, how to set broken bones. A good gladiator physician can mean the difference between a fighter returning to the arena or ending up on the funeral pyre. It's another aspect of the games you hadn't fully considered, the medical infrastructure required to maintain the gladiatorial system. These fighters represent significant investments of time and money. Naturally, their owners would want the best possible care for them when injured. It's both humane and economically sensible. Your tour continues through more of the hypogeum's specialised areas, the water management system that can either drain the arena floor or flood it for pneumachiae, staged naval battles, storerooms filled with weapons and armour, workshops where arena props are built and repaired. It's a complete world beneath the feet of the spectators, as complex and organised as any Roman military camp or government building. Finally, your guide leads you back toward the surface, this time via a different route, the gladiators' entrance to the arena. This sloping passage leads directly from the preparation areas to the main gate where combatants make their grand entrance at the start of each contest. This is where they walk from relative safety into potential death, the guard says, his voice taking on a more solemn tone. I've seen the strongest men hesitate here just for a moment before squaring their shoulders and marching forward. Takes a special kind of courage. You can almost feel the weight of that moment, standing in this transitional space between the mundane world of preparation and the heightened reality of the arena. The stone walls seem to hold the echoes of countless men who have made that final walk, some never to return. Emerging into sunlight near one of the main entrances, you thank your guide for the illuminating tour. He nods, pocketing another small coin you offer in appreciation. Enjoy the games today, he says. Maybe you'll see them differently now that you know what happens below. Indeed, as you make your way to your seat amid the growing crowd, you find yourself viewing the Colosseum with new eyes. The spectacle unfolding in the arena is now just one part of a larger system you can visualize. The underground machinery, the workers and slaves making everything function, the careful orchestration behind what appears spontaneous. The games are beginning as you settle onto your seat. Today, you've chosen a position in the middle tier, not too high or low, with a good overall view of the arena. The opening ceremony proceeds as usual. The procession, the salute to the emperor, the preliminary entertainments. But now you notice details you previously missed. The precise timing of effects, the coordinated movements of arena staff, the subtle signals passing between officials. The day's program unfolds with familiar rhythms. The animal hunts in the morning, the executions at midday, the gladiatorial contests in the afternoon. But your perspective has shifted. Each spectacular moment now reveals its underlying machinery to your more educated eye. When a group of exotic deer suddenly appears in the arena, you visualize the workers below operating the lift that raised the platform. When scenery transforms between events, you can picture the coordinated effort of dozens of slaves making the change happen smoothly. Even the gladiatorial combats take on new dimensions as you recognize the carefully matched fighting styles, the subtle role of the referees, the medical team waiting just out of sight to attend to the wounded. The games are still captivating, still emotionally engaging, but now they're also intellectually fascinating. A complex system of engineering, logistics, and human expertise, all dedicated to creating these moments of collective experience for Rome's citizens. Your thoughts are interrupted by a commotion several rows behind you. A heated argument has broken out between two men, apparently over a gambling debt from yesterday's matches. Their voices rise above the general noise of the crowd, drawing attention from those nearby. Before the situation can escalate further, two arena guards appear, moving efficiently through the seated spectators to reach the disturbance. The guards don't need to use force. Their presence alone and a few quiet words are enough to calm the situation. One man grudgingly hands over some coins to the other, settling the debt that sparked the argument. Order is restored quickly. The small drama concluded without seriously disrupting the larger spectacle. It's another example of how thoroughly managed the Colosseum experience is. Everything from the grand processions to the smallest audience disturbance is handled according to established protocols. The Romans excel at creating systems that function smoothly at every scale. As the morning progresses into midday, you notice changes in the quality of light within the amphitheatre. The sun has reached its zenith and the shadows have shifted. The velarium, the massive awning system, has been adjusted by the sailors operating it to provide maximum shade for the most expensive seats while still allowing adequate light for the events below. The heat has intensified and you're grateful for the occasional breeze that finds its way through the Colosseum's open structure. Around you, spectators fan themselves, drink more frequently from cups of watered wine, and dab at sweat-dampened foreheads with cloth. The physical experience of attending the games is demanding in its own way. Hours sitting on hard stone in variable weather conditions, surrounded by thousands of other bodies generating heat and noise. Yet no one seems inclined to leave early. The discomfort is simply part of the experience, accepted as the price of participation in Rome's greatest public entertainment. There's a shared endurance that creates a kind of communal bond among the spectators, all choosing to remain despite the challenges of heat, crowding, and basic physical needs. During a brief lull in the program, as the arena is being prepared for the next event, a vendor makes his way along your row selling small clay cups of posca, a common Roman drink made from vinegar, water, and herbs. It's surprisingly refreshing in the heat. the sourness cutting through thirst more effectively than plain water. You purchase a cup, the cool liquid a momentary relief. "First time I came to the games, I nearly fainted from the heat," comments the woman seated next to you today, a matronly figure with a practical air about her. "Now I bring everything I need: drink, food, fan, cushion." You learn after a while, you nod in agreement, appreciating the practical wisdom. The Colosseum veterans have developed their own strategies for making the experience more comfortable, knowledge passed along through experience rather than any formal instruction. "My husband used to complain about sitting here all day," she continues, fanning herself with a woven palm leaf. "Said it was too hot, too crowded, too long, but then he'd be the first one ready to go the next time games were announced." She smiles at the memory. "Been coming on my own since he died. 5 years now. Doesn't feel right to miss them somehow." Her story hints at how deeply the games are woven into the fabric of Roman life, not just spectacular entertainment, but a social ritual, a shared experience that connects people to each other and to the rhythms of the city's calendar. For many Romans, attending the games is part of their identity, a lifelong practice that marks the passage of time and creates memories that span decades. The midday executions begin, and like many around you, you find yourself looking away from the more gruesome moments. Today's innovation is particularly disturbing. Condemned men forced to act out scenes from mythology while being genuinely killed in the process. A man playing Icarus is set on fire after his wings fail. Another, cast as Actaeon, is torn apart by dogs. It's theatre merged with execution, artistic pretension added to what is already a brutally cruel punishment. "I never watch this part," your neighbour confesses quietly. "I know it's meant to be justice, but..." She trails off, then adds, "The gladiator fights are different. Those men choose their path, train for it. This is just..." Again, she doesn't finish the thought, but her meaning is clear. Her discomfort mirrors your own and reminds you that even in a society that normalizes these spectacles, individual Romans maintain their own moral boundaries. Not everyone cheers for every drop of blood. The crowd contains multitudes, those who revel in the most extreme violence, those who appreciate only the skill and courage on display, those who attend out of social obligation while averting their eyes from the worst moments. You find yourself wondering about the Romans who don't attend at all. Surely there must be some who find the games completely objectionable or simply uninteresting. Are they silently judged by their peers? Do they invent excuses to explain their absence? Or is abstention from this central cultural institution simply accepted as a personal choice? These reflections occupy your mind until the arena is cleared once more, the sand raked over to hide the evidence of what just transpired. There's a longer break now before the afternoon's gladiatorial contests. People stand and stretch, visit the facilities, purchase food and drink. The conversation rises in volume as spectators discuss what they've seen so far and anticipate what's to come. You use the opportunity to walk around the circumference of your seating tier, observing the crowd from different angles. The Colosseum, when full, presents a remarkable sight, a living mosaic of humanity in all its variety. From your vantage point, you can see the different seating sections clearly demarcated, the social hierarchy of Rome made visible in stone and flesh. In the lowest tier, nearest the action, sit the senators in their white togas with purple borders distinguished by their wealth and political power. Behind them are the equites, the knights or upper middle class in their own distinctive dress. Your own section contains the ordinary citizens, shopkeepers, craftsmen, minor officials, the backbone of Roman society. And high above, in the furthest seats, are the women, the poor and the slaves permitted to attend. It's a physical representation of Roman social structure, everyone in their assigned place, the divisions maintained even in this supposedly unifying entertainment. Yet despite these separations, there's also a sense in which the games level social distinctions. All eyes watch the same events. All voices join in the collective roars of approval or disappointment. All bodies experience the same physical conditions of heat, thirst, and occasional discomfort. Returning to your seat as the afternoon session begins, you settle in for what many consider the main attraction, the gladiatorial contests. Today's matches feature some unusual pairings and specialties not seen in previous days. First comes a contest between a scissor and a retiarius. The scissor is a rare type of gladiator who fights with a unique weapon, a tube-like metal fixture worn over his right arm, ending in a curved blade that gives him his name. His left arm bears a small shield, and his head is protected by a helmet with a stylized fish crest, similar to that worn by the Mamillo. His opponent, the retiarius, carries the familiar net and trident combination, his body mostly unarmoured for maximum mobility. It's a fascinating match to watch, the scissor constantly trying to close distance and use his specialised weapon at close range, the retiarius working to maintain space for his net throws and trident thrusts. The crowd reacts enthusiastically to the unusual contest, cheering particularly skillful attacks and defences from both men. After several tense minutes, the retiarius scores a decisive hit, his trident puncturing the scissor's thigh. The wounded man drops to one knee, but continues fighting bravely, earning the crowd's admiration. When he's finally disarmed and at his opponent's mercy, the spectators signal overwhelmingly for clemency, which the emperor grants. Both men leave the arena alive, the defeated scissor limping but with his honour intact. More matches follow, each with its own drama and technical interest. A Dimachus wielding two swords faces off against a Hoplomachus with spear and shield. A female gladiatrix demonstrates remarkable skill with a bow against a male opponent who must reach her with sword and shield before she can fill him with arrows. A mounted eques on horseback battles another eques in a display of equestrian combat skills rarely seen in the arena. Between bouts, you notice something you'd previously overlooked, the musical accompaniment that underscores the action. A small orchestra of musicians occupies a section near the imperial box, playing on trumpets, horns, and water organs. Their music follows the rhythm of the combat, building tension during standoffs, quickening with the pace of exchanges, reaching crescendos at moments of decisive action. It's yet another carefully managed element of the spectacle, the soundtrack manipulating emotional responses just as deliberately as the visual components of the show. Nothing in the Colosseum happens by accident. Every aspect is designed for maximum impact on the audience. As the afternoon wears on, the quality of light begins to change again, the sun now descending toward the western horizon. Golden rays slant through the upper arches of the Colosseum, creating dramatic patterns of light and shadow across the arena floor. The temperature drops slightly, bringing welcome relief after the heat of midday. The final match of the day is announced, a special exhibition featuring Carpophorus, Rome's most famous bestiarius or animal fighter. Unlike regular venaciones where hunters work in teams to bring down beasts, Carpophorus performs solo, facing multiple animals in succession with different weapons and techniques. He enters the arena to thunderous applause, a tall, powerfully built man whose muscled body bears the scars of countless encounters with dangerous beasts. He acknowledges the crowd with raised arms, then takes his position in the centre of the sand, armed initially with only a spear and a small shield. At a signal from the editor, a trapdoor opens and a large boar charges into the arena, its tusks gleaming dangerously. Carpophorus faces it with practiced calm, sidestepping the initial rush and striking with his spear as the animal passes. The blow isn't fatal but draws blood, enraging the boar, which wheels around for another charge. This time, Carpophorus stands his ground until the last possible moment, then drives his spear directly into the boar's chest as he pivots aside. The beast crashes to the ground, mortally wounded but still dangerous in its death throes. The bestiarius finishes it quickly with a precise thrust to the heart, earning appreciative applause from the crowd. Without pausing for rest, Carpophorus exchanges his bloodied spear for a bow and quiver of arrows brought by an attendant. Another trapdoor opens, releasing a leopard that immediately seeks the shelter of some artificial rocks placed in the arena for this purpose. The spotted predator crouches, its eyes fixed on the man, tail twitching as it prepares to pounce. Carpophorus knocks an arrow and waits, perfectly still, inviting the attack. When it comes, a blur of spotted fur launching through the air, his response is immediate. The arrow flies true, striking the leopard in mid-leap. The big cat crashes to the sand, not dead but wounded and now more cautious. What follows is a tense game of cat and mouse, with the roles somewhat reversed, the human hunter stalking the wounded predator as it tries to keep obstacles between them. Eventually, Carpophorus maneuvers the leopard into a position where he has a clear shot, and his second arrow finds the animal's heart. For his final challenge, Carpophorus takes up a sword and small round shield. The anticipation in the crowd is palpable as a larger trapdoor opens, revealing his most dangerous opponent yet, a male lion, its mane full and dark, its roar echoing around the amphitheatre as it emerges into the light. This is the moment everyone has been waiting for, the climax of the day's events, Rome's premier animal fighter facing nature's most iconic predator. The lion paces the edge of the arena at first, perhaps confused by the noise and unfamiliar surroundings. Carpophorus remains in the centre, sword ready, turning slowly to keep facing the big cat. The lion charges without warning, covering the distance between them with frightening speed. Carpophorus meets the attack with shield raised, absorbing the impact and slashing with his sword in the same motion. The blade opens a wound along the lion's shoulder, but the beast's momentum carries both of them to the ground in a chaotic tangle of man and animal. For a heart-stopping moment, it seems the bestiarius may have met his match. The crowd rises to its feet, a collective gasp sweeping through the Colosseum. Then Carpophorus emerges from the struggle, rolling clear of the lion's claws and regaining his feet in one fluid motion. He's bleeding from several gashes, but his sword arm remains strong. The wounded lion is more cautious now, circling rather than charging directly. Carpophorus matches its movements, looking for an opening. When the lion rears to swipe with its massive paws, the fighter darts forward, driving his sword deep into the animal's chest in a perfectly timed thrust. The lion collapses, blood pouring from the mortal wound. Carpophorus steps back, breathing heavily, his own blood mingling with that of his fallen opponent. He raises his sword in salute to the emperor, then to the crowd, which responds with a deafening roar of approval. It's a fitting conclusion to the day's events, a display of human courage and skill against nature's fiercest predator, the ultimate demonstration of Rome's dominion over the natural world. As Carpophorus leaves the arena, supported by attendants who will tend to his wounds, you can't help but admire his bravery, while also feeling a twinge of regret for the magnificent animals sacrificed for this display. With the final event concluded, the day's games come to an end. The crowd begins to disperse, flowing out through the vomitoria in a carefully managed exodus. You remain seated for a few minutes, watching the transformation of the arena as workers enter to clear away the evidence of the day's events. The bodies of animals, broken weapons, bloodied sand, all removed efficiently to prepare for tomorrow's spectacles. The light is fading now, the interior of the Colosseum taking on the golden glow of late afternoon. Shadows lengthen across the arena floor, and a cooler breeze passes through the open structure. It's a peaceful moment after hours of intense stimulation, a quiet coda to the day's drama. As you finally rise to leave, your body stiff from another day on stone, you take one last look at the empty arena below. In your mind, you can still see the gladiators, the animals, the condemned, all the players in Rome's grand spectacle of life and death. You've witnessed just a few days of games, but the Colosseum has hosted thousands such days over the decades of its existence, and will host thousands more in the centuries to come. What does it mean, this massive investment in staged violence and spectacle? What does it say about Rome, about humanity itself, that such entertainments have become central to the culture? These are questions that even Romans themselves debate, in philosophical treatises, in private conversations, in the quiet thoughts of individual spectators like yourself. There are no simple answers. The games are simultaneously a political tool, a religious ritual, a social gathering, an artistic performance, and a business enterprise. They reflect Rome's values, its emphasis on courage and skill, its celebration of victory, its need to demonstrate power over nature and foreign peoples. But they also reveal its contradictions, a civilization capable of remarkable achievements in law, engineering, and governance that still embraces public violence as entertainment. Making your way through the emptying corridors of the Colosseum, you emerge into the late afternoon light of Rome. The city continues its eternal bustle around the massive amphitheatre, people heading home after the games, vendors packing up their wares, workers preparing for evening activities. Life flows onward, shaped by but not defined by the spectacles just witnessed. You decide to walk back to your lodgings rather than taking a more direct route, wanting to experience more of the city in this thoughtful mood. Rome spreads around you in all its contradictory glory, magnificent public buildings alongside cramped apartment blocks, elegant villas beside squalid slums, temples to the gods within sight of brothels and gambling dens. It's a city of extremes, of wealth and poverty, of sophistication and brutality, all coexisting in a complex urban ecosystem. The streets grow quieter as you move away from the Colosseum district into more residential areas. The fading light casts a gentle glow over the buildings, softening their edges. Lamps are being lit in windows and doorways, small points of warmth against the gathering dusk. From somewhere nearby comes the sound of a flute, a simple melody floating on the evening air. Reaching your inn, you find the tavern on the ground floor already filling with patrons, some fellow visitors to the games, others local residents coming for an evening meal and company. The atmosphere is relaxed and convivial, so different from the intense excitement of the arena. You decide to join them, taking a seat at a table and ordering a simple dinner of bread, cheese, olives, and wine. As you eat, you overhear snatches of conversation from nearby tables. Some people are discussing today's games, of course, but others talk of family matters, business concerns, local politics, romantic entanglements, the full spectrum of human interests and preoccupations. The games, for all their cultural importance, are just one element of Roman life, one thread in the complex social fabric. A travelling musician enters the tavern and begins to play a lyre, singing a popular ballad that has several patrons joining in on the chorus. It's a love song, full of romantic yearning and poetic metaphors, a reminder that Rome produces art and beauty alongside its more violent entertainments. The crowd in the tavern responds warmly, tossing coins to the musician when he finishes and calling for another song. After your meal, feeling pleasantly tired from the day's experiences, you climb the stairs to your room. The space is simple but comfortable enough. A straw mattress on a wooden frame, a small table with an oil lamp, a window looking out onto a narrow street now dark, except for the occasional glow of a passing lantern. You light the lamp, its gentle flame creating a small circle of warmth in the darkness. Sitting on the edge of the bed, you remove your sandals, feeling the relief of bare feet after a day of walking. Your muscles ache pleasantly, your mind is full of images and impressions, your body ready for rest. As you lie back on the mattress, pulling a light blanket over yourself against the cooling night air, you find yourself reflecting on all you've experienced in these days at the Colosseum. The spectacles themselves, thrilling, disturbing, impressive. The building, a marvel of engineering and design. The people, from gladiators to emperors, from vendors to fellow spectators, each playing their role in the grand performance that is Rome. You've witnessed just a small slice of life in the world's greatest empire, but it's been revealing, showing both Rome's magnificent achievements and its troubling flaws, its common humanity and its unique cultural expressions. The Colosseum embodies all of this. The best and worst of what humans can create together, a monument to both civilization and savagery. Your thoughts begin to drift as sleep approaches, the images of the day blurring and merging. The roar of the crowd fades to a gentle murmur in your memory. The tension of the arena gives way to the peaceful heaviness of limbs sinking into the mattress. The bright colours and sharp movements of the spectacle soften into the warm darkness behind your closing eyelids. Tomorrow may bring another visit to the games, or perhaps you'll explore other aspects of this eternal city. Rome has endless facets to discover, countless stories to tell, but for now, sleep calls, drawing you down into its depths as night envelops the city. The last thing you register before consciousness fades is the distant sound of a night bird, its call floating through your open window, a simple, natural counterpoint to the elaborate human dramas you've witnessed. Then sleep takes you, deep and dreamless, your body and mind finding the rest they need after days immersed in the intense, complex, contradictory experience that is the Roman Colosseum. In that moment of transition between wakefulness and sleep, a final thought forms. Civilizations rise and fall, empires expand and contract, cultural practices evolve and disappear, but the essential human experiences, wonder, fear, admiration, disgust, connection, isolation, remain constant across the centuries. The specific form of the Colosseum's games may be unique to Rome, but the needs they fulfill are universal and timeless. And with that thought, you slip away completely, joining all the other sleeping souls of Rome, from emperor to slave, from gladiator to spectator, in the democratic realm of dreams, where all are equal in their vulnerability, and all are part of the continuing human story that stretches from ancient days to times yet to come. The Colosseum stands silent in the night, its massive stone form visible against the star-filled sky, waiting for tomorrow's games, tomorrow's crowds, tomorrow's dramas, one more day in its long existence as the beating heart of Roman entertainment, Roman identity, and Roman life.